So let's first go to the installation and configuration, database configuration guide. So this is pretty detailed on what to do. I recommend installing it with Conda, but I mean, of course, sometimes that doesn't work for different systems. And in that case, you would probably want to do like a Docker build or something. So we've containerized all the different modules into different Docker containers. But just like a high-level overview, so what you would do is you would download the repository, install the con environments, and then you would download and configure the databases. And I usually do this before I do anything, is I set my conda RC, and then I clean up my conda environment, and I update everything, and then I make sure that Mom was installed. So this is the stable version, but in this tutorial we're going to do the beta version, so it's going to be a little different on how we do it. And then so essentially what you do is you would, once you pull the repo, then you'd run this install script, and there's some optional arguments that you don't need to add. And what that does is it goes and installs all of the different conda environments for the different VEBA modules. And this one doesn't take that long, it takes like an hour or two, and you need at least like 20 gigabytes of memory, like 16 gigabytes maybe, just because some of the modules like that use anti-smash, they do some configuration in the back end that requires at least 16 gigabytes of memory, and I think check-in 2 does as well. And then after you do that, then you're going to want to download like the full database. There's ways to download smaller or like custom versions of the database, which is a little more advanced, and in this one I'm going to download and configure like a very light version of the database just for the tutorials, and I'm going to run locally. But I definitely recommend downloading the full database so you can run the entire pipeline and really not have to worry about getting like the proper environment variables set up, or like if the versions are compatible or not. So for this one, you would activate the VEBA database environment. So this installs like Diamond. It also has like a wget and MM62 and everything. So those are tools that you're going to need to configure the databases. And then so you're just going to run that database script right there, and you're going to give it the path to the database. And so you're going to need at least 48 gigabytes of memory for this. So if you have a job scheduler, then you should probably use that, because I doubt that if you have like a shared HPC, your head node probably doesn't have 48 gigabytes of RAM on it. It probably has like 1 gigabyte, maybe 4. So you're gonna want to use a job scheduler for that. And this is how I've done it with QSub. This is with SBatch, so Slurm. And then in the end, you're gonna have all of these different conda environments. And then after you run your database install script, then you're going to have a bunch of environment variables that are, it's basically going to put all the executables where they need to be, and it's also going to give you the environment variables that are specific to your system. That has like the VEBA database and everything. And then you can check your installation with this. And if you ever want to update them in scripts or something, you could just do this update environment scripts, and you give it the path to your VEBA repository. And you can also update your environment variables. So like, let's say you moved your VEBA database or something, or I don't know, you renamed it, then you can update your environment variables using this script right here. And this is all under install. So this is the download database script, this is install script. There's also an uninstall script, the different update scripts, and then the VEBA databases are split into 4 main databases. So this basically just runs all of them. If you take a look at it, it's pretty well documented. You can see what it's doing. So in this tutorial, I don't want to download like 300 gigabytes on my local computer. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a small version, which is just going to use a couple of databases. So in the tutorial that I want to do locally, I want to run the preprocess module, I want to run the assembly module, and then I want to run the prokaryotic binning module, and then finally I want to run the clustering module. And I'm going to do this with Docker because I'm running this on my MacBook, and all of this is designed for Linux. All right, so I would go to, let's go to the main repo. and then we'll go to the usage and requirements guide. That's going to take you to this README right here, and then you're going to go down. Okay, so I wanted to run the preprocess module. What database do I need? Contamination database. Assembly doesn't need a database. The binning prokaryotic needs the classify database, but we're just going to build a very small version of this, so you can see what I do for that. And then the clustering module doesn't use a database. Okay, so I'm going to go to, made a new directory called tests VEBA. All right, and then the first thing we want to do is we want to download that contamination database. So this is a script that I ran earlier. It doesn't take that long to run, but basically, let's see, so you can see where I'm at. So I'm here. I downloaded that release. So I'm using the beta release here. Just for the tutorial, but by the time this comes out, you're gonna wanna use the actual version. So I just downloaded the zip file right here. So I copy link, and then I did wget, pulled that out, and then I think this is the command. Yeah, and then you just uncompress it, but I already did that. So we end up with this right here. So that's my VEBA repository. This is the beta build, like I mentioned. And then I wanted to run the contamination script right here. That's what it looks like. And when I ran it earlier, this is the command that I ran. So it's gonna put it into my home directory, databases, VEBA DB v6. So I ran that to get all the contamination database files that I needed. And then I ran, okay, so I wanted to get just the checkm2 database because that's what I need for the prokaryotic binning. That's the only database that I need for that. So this is a custom script that I just ran. Essentially what I did is I went to classify, and then I just copied the checkm2 database download command, and then I specified my database directory manually. So if you look at that here, make sure to give it the full path. Don't give it a tilde here because it'll actually make a tilde directory, which you don't want. So this is my VEBA database. Yeah, it's going to make a subdirectory called classify checkm2. It's going to pull from Zenodo, and then it's going to decompress it, and then it's going to get rid of the intermediate files. So I ran that, and now let's look at what this database looks like. Okay, so we have our classify directory with just the checkm2 that I want. We have our contamination directory, and the main thing I need from this are the ribocamers and the human telomere to telomere bow tie 2 build. So now that we have that, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to download the test data. So this is from the first paper, the BMC Bioinformatics paper. Go down to test data. We have a plastosphere marine metagenome, and I made 4 test samples that basically have viruses, prokaryotes, and eukaryotic organisms in there. And then so you can use these to test VEBA, essentially. And yeah, so just go to download, and then here's all the files. So I mean, there's a bunch of files in here. There's like genomes, there's clusters. So if you want to test different stages of VEBA, you can download any of these. But we're just going to download the FASTQ. So for that, you go copy link, and then it would look like this. Okay, but I ended up making a for loop. So I basically just got that URL and then made a for loop for the different identifiers S1 to S4, and then getting the forward reads and then the reverse reads. So I ran that earlier. Looks like this. And one thing I want to mention is in these files, there's just different number of reads for the R1 and R2, and I did that on purpose because I want meta spades and some other spades-based programs, I want those to fail if you don't do the pre-processing. So when you do the pre-processing, what it does, if you get a contamination database, then it'll align to that contamination database, remove those reads, and then also does quality trimming and all that stuff, and it also pairs them as well. So that's really important because you're going to want to get perfectly paired up FASTQ files when you're sending it through to these assemblers like Metaspades. Okay, so we have all of that. So we have our slimmed down version of the database that we need to run these modules. We have our test data set, and yeah, I think that's good for this. Okay, so for the next video, I'll do tutorial for using Docker, and then we're gonna basically process all of these samples.